Greetings and welcome, Turn It Up family. Yeah, this morning is a special streaming of an interview with one of our great brothers there in the continent, in Addis Ababa, Ras Abye. It's also honoring one of our fallen heroes, our heroine, Assata Shakur, who passed away yesterday in Cuba. So we want to send out love and pray that the ancestors receive her with open arms. Rastafari. Yesterday was also the celebration of the true cross in Ethiopia called Meskel. And we will touch a little bit on that as well.
North region, all I see is beautiful Ethiopia. I can't forget the land of my culture. This is the land of Alpha and Omega. Oh yeah, Africa is calling. Yes it is, yes it is. Africa is calling. Now listen, Africa is the world teacher. Yes, it's the cradle of civilization. Africans rise to the occasion. Africa is the land of redemption. Oh yeah. No more tribal boundaries. We got to work out our differences. Let's do it with love and understanding. Let Jah be our guide and leader. Oh yeah. Africa is calling. Yes it is, yes it is. Africa is calling. We got to go home. Africa is calling. Yes it is, yes it is. Africa is calling. Can I hear Carlos? Hit me now. sisters. You got to love each other. You got to be your brother's keeper. Oh yeah. Africa is calling. Yes it is. Yes it is. Africa is calling. Yes it is. Yeah. Africa is calling. We got to go. Africa is calling. Africa awaits its creators. Africa awaits you and I. Africa awaits its creators. Africa awaits I and I.
Yes, I.
Ethiopia, the land of forefathers, the land where the gods love to be, like peace to their high southern gathered. Thy children are gathered to thee with the red, gold, and green floating o'er us, with the emperor to shield us from wrong. With the God on a future before us, we hail thee with chants and with songs. God bless our Negus high, and keep Ethiopia free to advance with truth and right, to advance with love and light, with righteousness leading. We haste to the call. Humanity's leading. One God for us all. One God for us all. King of Jah Rastafari, Almighty God.
Xavier, Mastagan, Kebra Amlak, Sinai still in Salam. Greetings in the glorious name of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I and His glorious Queen Itege Menen Aspa, our Mother of Creation. I also greet you in the divine name of the Black Tiger, the visionary, the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. I greet you also in the divine name of the high priest of the Melchizedek order, King Emmanuel VII, Adonai God, Jah Rastafari. Like I said earlier, this is a special streaming this morning as we are celebrating Mescal, the true cross, the finding of the true cross. We also are giving tribute and honor to a falling soldier from among I and I, Asata Shakur, who went on to the ancestors yesterday. I will now call for a minute of silence. Ja, Rastafari. Yes, this morning we will be interviewing our brother Ras Abye in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. He will introduce himself and tell you about what he does. Brother Abye, welcome to the Cosmic Revelation.
Amaseginalo. When we say thank you, we say Amaseginalo. Give thanks for the invitation. It's an honor to be among I and I. Being able to share I and I knowledge and information coming from the Horn of Africa, Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. I am a Rastaman for years, since the 80s. We left Ethiopia. I'm a born Ethiopian. We left Ethiopia after the Red Terror. It was in Djibouti. And afterwards went to America. And I've been back home since the year 2000, European calendar. My profession is a mathematics teacher and language teacher. But for the last 23 years, I've been working in Ethiopian tourism, going from north to south, east to west, crisscrossing the nation, trying to understand what Ethiopia is really about. So this is who he is.
Rastafari. So you say you were born in Ethiopia.
True.
Were you there during the time of the Red Terror?
Yes, my father was a colonel in the Imperial Bodyguard, but during the revolution, he was retired. And what happened, I was maybe 15, so I witnessed the massacre of the youth. That's why I had to leave the nation as soon as I finished high school in 1979. The terror was so intense, they would leave, dead bodies of students the entire day to traumatize the youth, so not, so we don't rebel against the military government. Mm-hmm. So at 17, when I finished high school, I crossed the desert between Ethiopia and Djibouti. Djibouti is a very small nation on the Indian Ocean. It was part of Ethiopia. It's just the French government did not want to return it to Ethiopia in 77 because Ethiopia was in the communist bloc. You remember it was the Cold War, so they gave it an independence, but it's still under European and French influence. Mm-hmm. So that's where I escaped, and that's where I went and stayed there for 4 years before I went to the United States. Yeah. So that's the reason we left Ethiopia. The youth, they did not know, if there was no Red Terror, they would not have left. We would not have left Ethiopia. Yeah.
Yes, right. Well, well, my next question, is directly for I and I, Rastafari. What is your take on the years that you spent there during Emperor Haile Selassie I's tenure?
Well, like I said, I do not come from what you call wealthy royal families, but my father was His Majesty's what you call intelligence officer. His father was Emperor Menelik's avant-garde soldier. That's why he went to Adwa. He fought. 40 years later, when Mussolini came, he made sure that my grandfather get executed because he was in the Adwa War. And
Wow, wow, wow.
my father, he was just a youth. He was just like me. He was maybe 17. So he fled to Kenya, joined the Patriots of the Resistance, returned to Ethiopia triumphantly a month before Addis Ababa was liberated. A month before His Majesty arrived, it was my father's army who liberated Addis. Yes, he's one of those, unsung heroes of Ethiopia. In 1961, there was a coup d'etat in Addis against His Majesty.
Yes, yes,
And
we know that.
even though he was in the imperial bodyguard, he led the troops into the palace to liberate the crown prince. Because the coup d'etat leaders had fled, he made sure the army, the imperial bodyguard, the police stayed together because it was the imperial bodyguard forces who had betrayed His Majesty during his absence. Yeah, so I was born just a few months later. So I
Hmm.
grew up, under those glorious days of His Majesty, reign of Ethiopia. Uh, so I can tell you the education I had in those days was priceless. That's when I realized how well educated we were in that generation. When I
Yes,
went to Djibouti, I was mastering French and English. We were taught correctly. We
yes,
had a
yes.
broader mind. The problem in those days is just the brainwashing of the European education system. So uh, my the reason I'm different is because I had a father who never had a Western education. He only had the love of country. So my father made sure every night I come home that I learn Ethiopian history. I don't be brainwashed. So he was telling me the reason I send you to a white man's school so you can come up with solutions. Don't bring me this foreign attitude or this European, what you call it, arrogance. So yeah, father played a
Hmm.
big role in building I character.
State your father's name for us.
Yeah, his name is Colonel Elahun Lakau. Elahun Lakau. I'll send you a picture of him when he welcomed His Majesty in Addis. The day of the liberation. He's the one who made sure it was law and order in Addis Ababa.
What
He's
we
the
call
one who made
V-Day.
sure the soldiers were. I beg your
Yeah,
pardon.
yeah, what we call V-Day, Victory Day.
Victory Day, yeah. So today we celebrate Victory Day, the day the emperor arrived, but officially, realistically, the troops coming from the Southern Front are the ones who liberated Addis. The reason that His Majesty took a while because the roads coming from Gondar are not what you call it, it's mountainous. So it took a
Yeah.
while for His Majesty and his troops to advance towards Addis. But the troops coming from the Southern Front, because of the terrain, it's less mountainous. And the Italian resistance was not even there. The Italians, they knew they had lost. So they were just running to Addis for safety because they knew the emperor would, give them amnesty like the Emperor Menelik did. And you have to
Yeah.
understand that Mussolini brought not only soldiers, but there were 60,000 Italian workers. Mussolini came with a long, what you call plan. He wanted to build infrastructure, the roads, the buildings, because he didn't want, this was a colonization project. But His Majesty in 1941 was very wise. He told them, since you cannot go back to Europe because it's World War II, you might as well finish the work you came to do here for. So when you come to Addis, when they tell you Italians built this road, Italians built this bridge, you have to understand how you're going to ask yourself, how were they able? It's because they had no choice.
Yes.
Rome was a ruin,
Yes.
Italy was in ruin. So the best thing they could do is behave, be in their best behavior, finish the work they came here to do, building the buildings, building the roads. And that's what happened.
Yes, I. So, by what you're saying, your father's troops, were they all Ethiopians?
Oh yeah. The thing is,
Okay.
you have to understand my father, when they went to Kenya as exile, as patriots, the British were the ones who trained, our people in arms. But the British were not gentle, so my father was locked up for 1 year, and with the Mau leaders on the foot of the Kilimanjaro mountain. There was a big penitentiary where they used to lock up anybody who was resisting British occupation in Kenya. So you see, during that time, he saw how the British tortured Jomo Kenyatta. And he saw how the British, really, the reason he was locked up because he didn't want to be a laundryman. They wanted him to wash the British officers' clothes. So he refused and they locked him up. And his friends wrote letters to His Majesty in London telling His Majesty to get amnesty for my father because of his bad behavior towards the British. So His Majesty, remembering the great work done by his father. You see, not only his father died, but the Italians came and killed 7 of his brothers 40 years later. Anybody who went to Adwa was chased down and executed and denied proper burial. That's why the Italians came after Adwa 40 years later, to avenge themselves. And they went after anybody who was with Emperor Menelek's army. Especially they went after the military leaders, like my grandfather. My grandfather had 8 sons. The last one was my father. That's why his mother, they made sure he escaped to Kenya so that the Italians don't kill him.
Yes.
So
because the misunderstanding that a lot of us have is that the British were the main components of that liberation. So I am glad to hear your account of it right now.
You have to understand that the British, they were not doing us a favor. If you look historically, when His Majesty went into exile to London, the Prime Minister of England was hiding under a table so that Hitler and Mussolini don't see him with His Majesty. It took Churchill to change course because His Majesty explained to Churchill that the war is not in Europe. The war is, by the Red Sea and the Gulf of Eden, because that's the route that's going to bring oil and supplies to, Europe. Like today again, it's the same story over and over again.
Yes.
So Churchill was not doing us a favor. It's not because he loved Ethiopians he did that. It's because London was being bombed day in, day out, and he knew they have to get a way out of this. So that's when they started to say, okay, we're gonna support Ethiopia. But they left us a time bomb in Eritrea, as you know. They didn't want to give up Eritrea. They kept it till the 60s. brainwashing the Eritreans, telling them they're better than the rest of us because they were colonized. They told them you were more modern, you're more Europeanized. The rest of Ethiopians, they still, in the bush, That's why the Eritreans have the strong feeling that they need to be separate from Ireland.
Hmm.
Yeah. So growing up under the days of His Majesty, His Majesty tried hard to bring Ethiopia, but the landlords, the aristocracy
The
was his
feudal king. Mm-hmm.
his biggest challenge. And sometimes when I see the grandchildren nowadays coming up on these talk shows, and it kind of vexes me because they're the ones who really were against the reforms that His Majesty. Their parents were the ones who were against the reform that His Majesty was bringing, and nowadays they going out there. We love Rastafari, so it's a lot of hypocrisy in our history.
True. Yeah. Yeah. You're clearing up some real history here for us right now, because we have always felt some form of, let's say, obligation to the British for that moment. But now that you are bringing the true facts to the forefront, it's making things much more understandable. So during his return, upon his return, I know he gave amnesty to the Italians, and he called for peace, no retribution. Your family, most of your family at that time, were they outside of Ethiopia or?
Oh no! I tell you, first person who was mad was my father. Because he had lost his father. He had lost 7 of his brothers. And you have to be in the position of His Majesty. Ethiopia didn't have trained professionals. So His Majesty, not only he gave amnesty to the Italians, he also gave amnesty to the collaborators, to the sellouts. That vexed people like my father, but you have to understand, the post office have to run, the train have to run, and all the so-called people who could run it, who could speak foreign languages, they were they had collaborated.
Yes.
But His Majesty, he did the same thing Emperor Menelik did. When Emperor Menelik defeated the Italians 40 years ago, there were thousands of Italian prisoners. And, he made sure, they went safely to Djibouti, to the Red Sea. He made them walk, of course. He didn't allow them to ride horses. He didn't allow them that. They had to walk, from Adwa to Addis, and then from Addis to the Red Sea. So it's in the tradition of Ethiopia, to give amnesty to those you defeated. But that created tension. You have to understand. People of the generation of my father didn't like that. They say, what about us? We paid with blood and with our heart and soul, but these guys, they're getting, promotions. They're keeping their jobs. But His Majesty was saying, listen, let's wait for, for your children to replace them, So he had no choice. I mean, if I was in His Majesty's position, I would have done the same thing. But humanity, we humans, we have our own personal objections and feelings. So
and
always, go ahead.
We see how that came back to him, to haunt him in the long run, because a lot of those ones who helped undermine his latter days with the misinformation that was sent to him about the famine in the north and all that took place that brought his leadership to an end. So we see the betrayal happening on different levels.
See, they betrayed him after his fall. Even I'm not going to mention some names.
No, that's okay.
When the military threatened them that they're going to take away their cars, their houses, and their land, they ran back to the military. So, you know, these cowards, as far as I'm concerned. But my father used always to say that, you know, there's not reliable people around him. As the years went by, after the 60s, the 70s, there were just people who were just fattening their pockets, sending their kids to Harvard. The generals used to take the ration for the soldiers and building nice villas and building buying Mercedes Benz. And that's why the army was vexed. You know, the army
Yeah.
loved His Majesty. The army loved the country. As the leaders in the army, they just, you know, they said, you know, he's old, so he's not going to follow up. That was the concern of people like my father and them. But they were not, you know, they were kept outside the courtyard. I tell you what, 6 months before the revolution, my father beat up the general who used to rule Eritrea. He told him, you know, you're stealing, you're thieving. The guy before you was stealing and thieving, you stealing and thieving. And of course, His Majesty did not like that. So he was expelled from the palace. I was outside the palace door that day. And he told me, you see, those who are robbing Ethiopia have been promoted.
Yeah.
So he said, you know, we're not coming back, you know. 6 months later, my brother, 6 months later, the military arrested those people. You know, 6 months, a year later, the emperor was overthrown. So I was only 13. These things are registered in my mind. And nobody in Ethiopian history today can fool me. You know, no prince, no lord, none of that. None of them people can impress me. Their children, I have nothing against, but you know, that's another issue.
Yeah, well, the truth always comes out, you know, at some point. You know, the truth always comes out, and we are hearing, you know, the truth this morning. Listeners, you're listening to Ras Abye in Addis Ababa. As you heard, he is the surviving generation coming from those early years of His Majesty and the coup and all that happened there in Ethiopia, which we have been fed many versions of what happened. So it's great to have the brethren in this morning who can give us his side of the story. You know, the Hunts have been telling the story for too long. It's time now that the lion step forward and tell the truth of the hunt. So my brother, we move on to our next point. I get to understand that you were intimately involved in the 60th birthday of the Honorable Robert Nesta Marley that was held in Addis Ababa, titled Africa Unite. Give us a little view into that moment.
Oh, it was a great moment because you have to understand, I was at Muscle Square during the Derg time when the dictator Mengistu was throwing those bottles filled either with blood or red ink in front of the Western diplomats. I saw it. It was a very terrifying moment. And here we are. Times has changed, and Honorable Robert Nesta Marley Strong was being celebrated in Muscle Square. It was the most exciting time of my life because see how things change, you know, from
Yes.
I was part of it. I did a lot of the translations for Mama Desta and Sister Rita Marley's endeavor because they're the ones who made it happen. Without them, it wouldn't happen.
Yes, sir.
You know, sometimes people think it's money. No, it's not money. You have to have desire. It takes a lot of work. So yeah, but that day, the prime minister of those days was in the crowd. And Ziggy Marley said something about Bob and, you know, the relationship between Rastafari and Jamaica. But whoever was on stage on that day did not correctly do the translation, and it vexed me, and I was so mad. Because, my brother, you have to understand, outside Muscat Square, there were evangelical Christianity followers just, you know, throwing pamphlets saying Bob Marley is a bad example for the Ethiopian youth. You know, they were just, my mother was still alive and she was telling me, be careful because, you know, those people are not too happy. So I took it, my responsibility to translate Bob Marley's 60 lyrics to Amharic and to the French language so that African youth understand what Bob was all about, you know? Because when they see the visual, they see the long locks, the guitar, and the ganja, but they don't see, there's a language barrier, my brethren. So I had to break it. I had to say, no, you know, they can be easily influenced by people telling them, no, he's just a black hippie, you know, he's just a ganja smoker. But they didn't understand the divine message, you know, the brethren was bringing. So when the book came out, all the youth came to me, but they said, Ras Abye, this is biblical. I said, yeah, this is what Ziggy was saying that day. This is what Ziggy was trying to convey to you, that his father, you know, is a messenger. And, you know, the people in the Caribbean islands are longing to come home. That's what he was saying. So that you guys understand that Rastaman, you know, is not just a long-haired hippie person. You know, it's a person with a mission. And I think the message got across. And I give thanks to Mama Desta. She put 1 copy of that book in the ethnographic museum in Addis Ababa today, which is the former palace of the emperor.
Yeah, man. Beautiful. Yeah, because a lot of people, they have been misled about Rastafari.
Indeed.
Yeah, not knowing that when Rastafari rose up in the West, in the Caribbean, on that little rock they call Jamaica, it was in resistance to colonialism, to the European brainwashing, brutality, oppression, the oppression of people of African descent. It was not about what was propagated, the ganja smoking and so forth and so on, because many people don't understand that there are many races that do not smoke. It's not about the smoking, it's about the resistance. We were feared for what we stood for. We stood on the philosophy of Marcus Messiah Garvey, which is a back to Africa philosophy. It's a philosophy of reclaiming your identity, you know, your who you are, and looking to Africa for ionized salvation versus looking to Christianity, to European or Judeo-Christian philosophy for our salvation. That is what Rastafari symbolizes. Propaganda has distorted that, just like our propaganda distorted the reality of what took place on V-Day or during that time when the emperor returned to Ethiopia. So we are here to correct history. And this is one of those moments of correction. So I appreciate love the I being in this space with I and I this morning to shed truth, the light of truth on these issues. How many was it well attended? Was the Africa Unite celebration well attended?
My brethren, they said 500,000 people. I think there was more than 500,000. The leadership in those days was open-minded because they used to listen, I believe, to Bob's music when they were rebels in the bush. But what it did, it was a new opening. It was a new era. It was a new era for Ethiopia. You see, even though we have the African Union, even though we have been having these year after year meetings with African leaders coming to Addis, there's never been a Pan-African vibration. You understand? It's always been diplomats in their fancy Mercedes Benzes. But this time it was Rasta was leading, the Africa Unite, that philosophy, the Africa Unite. Rasta was the one who brought it to people's home TV screens, whatever you call it. So for me, it was a historical moment that will remain unforgettable, very
Truly.
unforgettable. Because like I told you, when I was when I was 12 and a half years old, not even 13, I saw the dictator Mengistu. He had, wanted the crowd of Addis to come to Moscow Square, and he lined up all those European and American ambassadors, and he started throwing bottles of either red wine, either human blood, Jano. That same place was purified again. That same place was cleansed again. Because the Russians, they had him by the balls. They told him, if you don't piss off, the Westerners, we're not going to give you the weapons you need, because, the Somali army was right outside what you call Harar. The games they played on us. It was ridiculous. Ridiculous, because the same Russian troops who led the Somali troops to come into Ethiopia, a month later, flew to Ethiopia, and they were just chasing Somali troops out of Ethiopia. And guess what? Look at Somali state today. Somalia has become, a sad place ever since.
Yes.
You have to understand the big pictures, the game they play. They say, oh, Americans and Russians, they're going to fight. I never seen no American killing no Russian, but I've seen, I people just killing one another, so that the merchant, the weapon seller can become, wealthy and successful.
Billionaires. Yes, sir.
You understand?
Yes, sir. Yeah, man. And that leads me now to the Shashamane land grant. The emperor gave 500 hectares of land to ones returning from the West as a thank you for I continued support of Ethiopia through the decades. Give me a little view on what you know of the history of the land grant, and bring us up to date on what is happening in this present moment.
See, I'm going to take you back to the 50s and the 40s, when His Majesty gave that land, the road between Addis, Shashamane, used to take 2-3 days. It was not easily accessible. So, I people who repatriated in those days, it was so hard for them. So they went back to Addis. And then when the military government came, there was a land reform all over Ethiopia. Not just Shashamane land grant, but every Ethiopian who owned land, the land was taken. So the people explained to the dictator at that time, Mengistu, that, this land was given to the ones who repatriated. So he said, okay, those who repatriated can keep a certain amount of land, but, the rest belongs to the state. And governments change. When the military government was overthrown, the government changed, but the laws didn't change. You hear me?
Yes, sir.
The laws didn't change. The I people, ones with Shashamane, were obliged to align themselves with the law of the day.
Yes.
And now what makes matters worse is Shashamane is booming. You have to understand, you have to understand, Shashamane is the only town in southern Ethiopia where there's 5 roads coming from 5 different directions.
Wow.
It's a place that's going to be booming economically one way or the other. So since I and I people were on the main road, you know, not just I and I, but everybody would have houses along the road had to be demolished. And
What's the main
city
road there? Is it
planners,
the
they
King High?
come,
Is it the King Highway that passes along that
the King
region?
Highway, yeah. Now, if you
Okay.
come to Shashamane, you know, the road is growing, but land is developing, real estate prices rising. So the government wants you to they want you to develop the real estate, the valuable real estate you're sitting on. They don't want you to sit there with just 1-bedroom house. They want you to have a 3-4 story house or something. Do something with it. And you know, and I know, it's not easy for I and I to gather that kind of capital to just, erect some kind of real estate. So this is what a lot of people be missing. And I've seen I lived in Shashamane, by the way, for 3 years when I first came to Ethiopia. And that's where I saw the ripoff, the drama going on, because honestly, you want to come to Ethiopia, you want to buy land in Shashamane, but you don't know the laws, what I just told you.
Yeah.
So some guy will take you to another guy who will tell you, you can buy this land, There's no lawyer, there's no city maps. Is the house or land on the master plan? Is it residential? Is it for business? And I know, coming from the West, you should know these things.
Yes.
But some of our people, they say, oh, have a good deal, it's a backdoor deal. And they get ripped off.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, they're saying bad things about Shashamane. Come on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If
Yeah. That's what I was
I
getting
come
to.
to the US and you tell me you want to sell me the Brooklyn Bridge, and if I'm dumb enough to buy it from you, whose fault is it?
Yes,
I'm just giving you the example, my brother.
Yeah,
So when
I
you come to
totally
Africa,
understand.
don't think you're going it's the same thing. You got to have proof. You got to have legitimate real estate papers where the city council knows where is your portion of land, where you building the house. The water meter, the electricity should be in your name, not some stranger name. So I advise, once coming to Africa, to Ethiopia especially, please do your research. Please do your research carefully. Make sure you have guaranteed this is your property, because it's your life savings. You come in here to build a home. After you build a home, you don't want some guy to come and tell you this land belongs to my auntie. And then
Yeah.
you lose everything.
Yeah.
So so just be wise. That's the message I want to convey. Be very
Yeah.
wise.
So you're saying now there was no zoning categories clearly defined and understood by the ones coming in.
Yeah, you see, even Addis, the master plan changes every time there is a new mayor. I don't know if you know the news lately, thousands of houses have been demolished. I'm not even talking about Shashmani, my brother. So when you go to Shash, it's the same story. They want to develop Ethiopia, so they're gonna disregard the previous, what you call, master plan. They're gonna come up with a master plan, and they might want to have your nice house might be in the middle of the road. That's why I always insist: go to City Hall. Go meet the planners and ask them, where is a safe place? Where is the place that you have assigned for residential?
Right.
Because if you build your house in a business area, they want you to start a business.
Remove
They
it.
don't want you to live in that house.
Yeah. Yeah.
You understand me?
Yeah. I was
And
talking to Mama Desta, and she told me that she had to move out of Addis, out of her original residence
exactly,
here in Addis.
exactly, because Prince murdered her husband, his family. his parents, his grandparents, they've been there since Addis was established. That's his, that's his ancestral home. But the new regime decided, that had to go.
So what
That's
did
what I
they
was
use?
saying.
What do they use? Eminent domain? Is it the same over there where they use eminent domain as the legal fostering for removing the people?
My brethren, I don't know those details, but all I know is thousands and thousands of residents of Addis have been obliged to evacuate.
So what do they tell them when they are, what is the reason that is given to them?
The reason is because they wanna make the city more modern. See, brethren, when I put my shoes in the government's my feet in the government shoes, I understand. Why? Because urban planning needed to be done 30, 40, 50 years ago. This is work that needed to be done 50 years ago. Now listen, you come to Addis, a few meters outside His Majesty's palace, people, 20, 30 years ago, there was about 200 people using one toilet. I was part of the people who you did the survey who gave it to the previous government. They didn't care. They didn't care. But now those 200 people have become 500 for one toilet. So now this government had no choice, So regarding, Merit and Prince Merit and Mama Desta, there was a nice house, garden and everything, where the brethren can, do his arts. I'm sure you've seen the house.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, but if you saw around their house, when you come into their neighborhood, or if you went into the neighborhood, see, that's what happened when His Majesty reign ended. The military government allowed people to build anywhere, anyhow. Big mistake. See, if they had kept it the way the houses and the neighborhoods were during His Majesty, this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
You understand?
Right.
This would not have happened. But the military regime and then the regime after them, they were just, selling land left and right. So they caused this drama and it had to be cleaned up. Yeah. It's just the human factor that's the people suffer. If you live in that neighborhood, your school is right there for your children, your groceries right there. Now they live so far away. So, it's hard for transportation. It's hard for commuting to key areas, whether it could be their workplace, whether it could be the school for their children. So, yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy.
Was the clinic in Shashamane completed? I know the nurses of Israel were building was supposedly building a clinic there in Shashamane.
Okay, I'm not the right person to answer that question. Why?
Okay.
Because Shashamane propelled me to go all over Ethiopia.
Okay.
Okay, but these details, I'm not the right person to answer those questions.
Give thanks. Well, let us just jump into what you are more versed at. Royal Empress, if you can share the screen with some of those pictures that Ras Abye sent us of some of his journeys, we can get deeper now into the countryside, into the beautiful countryside of Ethiopia.
Well, I told you, for example, this is Aksum. This is my brethren, Bingishan. He's based in Atlanta in Ghana. Every year he brings the youth who are considered, failures in America. But what he does for 2 years, he make them raise funds. So what I do, I bring them, I take them all over Ethiopia. Now, this is Aksum. As you can see, the steles. So these steles were erected on the 5th or 6th century before Christ. What's so impressive about these steles that you see is the granite. So I usually take people to the quarry. The quarry is about 10 kilometers away from here. And in the museum, the white folks have painted elephants, saying elephants are the ones who pulled it. No, elephants couldn't pull these heavyweight, granite steles. So this is what this picture is about. So what's so special about the brother being Gishan? He focuses more on the youth so they can come to learn about African history, that predates even Christianity. And you will see in the later pictures, we go to Lalibela, we go to Gondar, we come to Addis, we visit Addis, and then we go to Shashamane. And in Shashamane, what we do, we link up with the brethren named Ras Abye. This is in Gondar, Those children, they grew up seeing Hollywood films, and they said they were not expecting to see castles. And I told them these castles, they're 350 years old. The emperors in those days, they loved castles. So the first castle is the first emperor, and all his descendants, they have their own castle. I don't know if you've been to Gondar, and Hollywood is always taking snippets of names and these places and the histories to make their Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. This is in Shashamane. This is the brethren you see there with the yellow turban is Ras Abye. And why I like to bring, the youth and Bingishan and his empress to Ras Abye is because you will see in the next picture, they plant trees so that, they might return, say, in 10 years or 20 years, they have left their footprint, fingerprint. Here they are. Yeah. They plant trees, they plant vegetables. Brother said, Ras Abye is a farmer. He grows all kind of spices. He's also a healer. He looks after the community because the community is always going to the pharmacist to get drugs. But nowadays they come to Ras Abye to get, to get natural healing. The next picture that you see. Oh, go ahead. The next picture that you see with the crocodiles. Okay, the reason I put these crocodiles, they're the biggest in Africa. This is about a day drive south of Shashamane. Now, Arbaminch is called 40 Springs. There's about a couple Rasta people living there. But the reason I bring people here, there's a rainforest next to it. And the rainforest just reminds me always of the mythical place of Adam and Eve. And that's why I tell people Tarzan never existed, Okay, so yeah. So this is the priest, one of the priests in Lalibela. I have a good relationship because there's 11 churches within the compound, and each church have its own clergyman who has the keys. Now, Ethiopian Christianity lately has been diluted and it's been badly explained. Why I say these things, we're not like the Greek Orthodox. We're not like the Russian Orthodox. We're not like the Egyptian Orthodox. You have to understand that everything that this priest used for communion must come from the land of the church, prepared by the hands of the church. They don't go to a supermarket to buy the bread and the wine. No. And if you go to a synagogue, if you go to a Catholic church, if you go to a Greek Orthodox church, there will never be a replica of the Ark of the Covenant, a Holy of the Holies. And I keep repeating, even to my own clergymen, please do not compare yourself with these other European, what you call it, clergymen. Now, one thing I forgot to tell you, before he went into Kenya, my father was supposed to be a deacon at the Libanos monastery. This monastery was established in the in the 13th century by a saint, okay, Ethiopian saint who prayed for 7 days. So my father taught me the real teachings of the church. Wearing black is not Ethiopian Orthodox Church rules. We never wore that, this Ethiopian priest always supposed to wear white, But when our clergymen go to Europe or America, learn English, and they want to be theology, PhDs, and stuff like that, not knowing it, unknowingly, they bring these things, and that's why sometimes the paintings of
Foreign
Christ is a white
traditions, yeah,
person,
man.
the paintings of the Mary is a white woman, And with me, it's always conflict all the time, because that's the reason why this generation of Ethiopian people, unfortunately,
Don't know
thinks
their
the
history.
lighter skin is divine, and that's my mission. I go all over Ethiopia, just fight and head on with the clergymen. Don't stop this BS. Sometimes
Yeah,
they
we have
get
experienced the same thing here, Ras Abye. In Washington, myself and my brethren Ras Abye from the Nyabingi house, we were in Washington for an event some years ago. And we took a cab from the airport, and it was driven by an Ethiopian. And he, started to expose some of the stereotype that he has taken up since being in the West. And we had to be sharing our knowledge of Ethiopia and Ethiopia's tradition with him. At the end of our journey, before we got out of his vehicle, he turned to us and said, I would love to take you both to Ethiopia with me so you could teach this younger generation this knowledge that you have, because you seem to know more about my history and my tradition than I do. Because he was totally mixed up, what I would say, on the reality of his own living.
my brethren. I'll give you a story, how not even just the paintings, even the clothing. I think about 10 years ago, I was told to take around this European photographer around Ethiopia. So when the photographer came, he told me his grandfather came during His Majesty's coronation to Ethiopia. He was a photographer. So I was excited, and I was like, okay, great, So he shared some stories with me, but I asked him, what is the difference that you saw between the time of your grandfather and your time? He said, Ras Abye, he said, all the pictures my grandfather took, Ethiopian people were wearing white, pure 100% cotton. And I said, no, well, everybody you show me is wearing made in China acrylic. So,
Wow,
you
wow,
understand?
wow. Yes, sir.
For me, it hit to my bones. He was
Sacrilegious
right.
is what I
So,
would call it. Sacrilegious is what
thank
I
you.
would call it.
Yeah. So even this European is seeing how, it's good to be modern, it's good to be up to date. It's like that brethren who gave the example about the Nigerians and the Indians. What the British stayed, in India and Nigeria, but the Indians, they only kept the knowledge and technology. They didn't wear the clothes, they didn't wear the food, they kept everything. Well, the Nigerian African took on the clothes, the state of mind, and the foolishness of the colonizer.
Yes.
So that's the challenges those are the things we need to teach our people. Go ahead.
One
This
of
is
the
this
ancient
is
Rastaman. One of the ancient
now this is the
Rastaman.
Hammer people. And this picture,
Okay.
very important, my brother. I
Oma
took
Valley.
a German anthropologist. I always go to the Omo Valley. In the Omo Valley, every 50 kilometers, there's a different tribe. The women were locked. So this German anthropologist, he studies Kemet, ancient Egypt. And he told me, slipped out of his mouth during dinner, he said, Abi, when I went into the hut, all the utensils that people use just the same as ancient Egyptians. I was like, what? Yeah. All the tools they use, and when I
Came down
look
the Nile
at the
family.
features of this tribe called the Hammer, I mean, every tribe in this valley is unique. The beauty is, you can tell, you see this, I just caught her going to the market, this is how I took this picture of her. So you see the thing around her neck, it shows she's the second wife. You see, polygamy is not, you have to understand about why they're polygamous. It's the first wife who chooses the second wife because there's so much work to do. These are farmers and cattle herders, so there's a lot of work. The men always are after the cattle, and the women have to stay in the village looking after the children, and the little gardens where they grow their little moringa. So most likely she was chosen by the first wife, and that's how I recognize her with the thing around her neck.
Yes, I. Yes, I. Yes, I. There's an old saying, which was popularized by one of our
Yeah.
ancient Rastafari, Ras Abye. He says that not everything modern is good, not everything old is bad. We need to
Thank you.
merge the best. We need to merge the best of the two eras and create what he called the modern antique. And that is where we are today, looking at what is best from the past and what is usable from the present to make a good projection to the future.
Correct. You see, when His Majesty gave his father's land and house to Addis Ababa University, where the Ethnographic Museum is,
Right.
on the seal of the university, in Gideon's, it's written, learn as much as you can, but keep what's good for the nation.
Yeah.
And that's why I always tell my older brother, rest in peace, and his generation, you guys went to learn a bunch of stuff, but you brought us all the nonsense.
Yeah. True.
There was no Afrocentric Makame, even though Makemeks had come to Ethiopia, that generation of Ethiopian scholars, they were caught up between the Cold War, either the
Yeah.
East,
Yeah.
all the ism and schism. Now, the reason I showed you this picture of the village, see, Ethiopia is the size of France and Spain combined. It's a big country. If you want me to give it to you an example with the US, it's like Florida, Oklahoma, and Louisiana all together. It's a big country. So when you say Ethiopia never been colonized, there are pockets in regions where people were never exposed to the outside world. Okay, that's why we're able to see these people who never been exposed either to Judaism, Christianity, or Islam. That's why I love to bring my people over there so they can see how the Hammer and all the Omo Valley people live in harmony with nature.
Yes,
So if I take you to this village, my brethren, no plastic, no trash, clean, and everybody saying, I said, yeah, they clean because they know cleanliness is, godliness for them. So who are we to look down on these people because they walk barefoot? And I always tell people, I always tell my, my fellow Addis Ababa residents, if a World War III happens today, these are the people who will survive because they know where the groundwater is. So like you said, now what they need is maybe access to clean water or electricity, because they cannot go on like this forever. This is, in the next 5 years, this village will not be there. This village will be just shacks or something. These are the last 5 years I press on my people to come because things are moving fast. Things are moving very fast. Yeah, this is Erbori. See, that's a different tribe from that girl that you saw. Every tribe, I mean, it's a big region. It's a big region, and every 50 kilometers there are different tribes. This is the Erbori people. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful people.
Yes,
I say they are beautiful people because how do you measure wealth in there and this is the brother, let's talk about them first. If you want to marry this girl, my brother, one of the girls, you better have 50 cattle and 2 AK-47s as dowry. So when you go to these villages, people ask me, where they get this one cow can cost nowadays up to, okay, I'm being reasonable, 500 US dollars. So you got to come up with 40 of those to get one of the these girls. And this is what causes conflict among the tribes, because the young man who cannot afford 40 cattle, he will go rob it from the next tribe. Yeah. So that's why, the government have a big, big challenge in making these people settle down and live on agriculture because they're so used to. This is the brother who was the teacher of ancient Egypt. Sure, you know him. Let you guess who he is. He takes groups to Egypt to become it. Huh? Thank you. So we ran into each other in Aksum, and he didn't know who I was. And when he heard me explain us, he said, "Are you Jamaican?" And then I told him who I was. This is the picture we took. Why I respect him, he's the one teaching, our generation that, yeah, ancient Egypt is the Black civilization. And he does bring a lot of people. But when he was going to bring a group, COVID came. This was before COVID. You see, even my hair hadn't gone gray yet. Yeah. So, but he brought a group of young scholars, and what he did, he said, well, he's going to explain everything. And he let me explain. He let me explain what I just told you about the obelisk and the kings of Aksum and everything. Yeah. Great person. Yeah. Great teacher. Great teacher.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, this is the Dorze tribe. Now, why I like them? Don't get me wrong, my brother. I love every tribe in Ethiopia. If you look at the huts behind me, what animal they remind you?
The huts behind you.
Yeah, the huts behind, you see, they're different huts, different style. So remember where I showed you the crocodile?
Yeah.
Is the lake, but they live on the mountains. These are the people living on the mountains. They're known for many things. Number one, they build their huts with bamboo like the elephant. They're the only ones who use the ear of the elephant like chimney so that the smoke doesn't stay inside the hut. Number two, they're the number one weavers of Ethiopia. Emperor Menelik was so impressed by them, he brought a whole bunch of them when he established Addis. The place they call Shiro Meda is where they settled. So if you had to come to Ethiopia 120 years ago, there were elephants right outside Addis, where the French ambassador asked, can I hunt for elephants? And Emperor Menelik telling them, you can only kill 2. But over here, the habitat, the hut itself is built in the form of elephant. And if you look, they even have, cheetah skin and everything.
Yeah.
So they love their drums, but what's so unique about them also is they make their bread out of false banana tree. It's called incense. See, in northern Ethiopia, people grow teff. In southern Ethiopia, teff doesn't grow because, for some altitude reason. So they grow this false banana. And this is how they make their bread. Yeah.
Yes, I. So, is there still a large population of elephants in
There
Ethiopia?
is a different region from. You have to go west. You have to come with me. There's a place called Chabaral. I will send you the links,
Hmm.
and that's where we have the elephant. We have two areas, two regions where we have elephants. Now, this is the second highest mountain in Ethiopia. From Shashaman, if you went east, it's a long, long road, beautiful area, beautiful area. It's called the Bali Mountains. I took National Geographic in this region because they wanted to do a documentary called The Great Human Race. They wanted to show how the first man and woman went from the low savanna lands of Africa to the highlands.
Right.
So I had to take them here, bring them here, show them, you know, it's really forestry,
Mhm.
because they were close to the clouds here. But once you go down, it's like a mesa. A mesa is like a table. The plateau is like a mesa. And when as you
Right.
go down, it's a unique forest there. But you'll have to
Oh,
come again. I can't be sure.
yes, I. Yes, I.
The
Come
Bali
on.
Mountains, a unique biodiversity place in Ethiopia. This is the rocks, this is the mountain again, Uh,
Hmm.
Sometimes people tell me, man, I would think, NASA they never went to Mars. So this is the rock formation. But what's the reason I came here is because 900,000 years ago, Homo erectus people lived behind me in those caves. This is a very, very remote area, my brother. You have to leave the car and walk with me for at least a couple of
So you
days
said
in the
900
mountain.
years ago, Homo erectus lived in those caves behind you.
Exactly,
Wow.
So this is kind of hard. It's not easily accessible. So I took a group of what you call them anthropologists, and everybody was scared to take them. So I'm the one who took them. They just came to take pictures. That's all.
So what is it? Is it a rough terrain? What's the fear behind
It's
going
about
there?
it's the height is about the same as that mountain, the one how you saw me.
Yes.
Tunudim to 4,200. This is
Hmm.
about 4,000, 4,000, 3,900. It's cold. It's cold above sea
Oh, it's
level.
cold up there.
No
Okay.
lights. Yeah, you see, this
Hmm.
is it's just about, how can we say it? About 300 meters difference between this one and that one. Yeah,
What kind of
but
animal population do you have there? What kind of animals
fox,
reside there?
the red jackal. It's an
Okay.
endangered species. But remember,
Mm.
at night where I camped, there were lions. I was in a tent, the driver stayed in a car, but, because of the brain food thing, I had to stay in a tent. Yeah. And but the lions are not this high up, because we don't camp here. It's so cold. So we have to go down in altitude, say about the same altitude as Addis, about 2,500, 3,000. That's where I set up camp. And at night, the drivers were telling me, man, there were 2, 3 lions passing through your tent. I said that, well, they knew I was one of them, so they didn't mess with me. Yeah.
Truly. Yes, I. Beautiful place, man. Mysterious. The Blue
Well,
Nile Falls.
yes, now this is, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, Ethiopia inaugurated the Grand Renaissance Dam.
Yes, I.
This water has been feeding Sudan and Egypt for millennia. But now Ethiopia has realized we need more dams to to use the fullness of this water.
Generate some electricity and stuff.
Where I'm standing right here is where His Majesty brought the Queen of England to show her, he was about to build a dam on, on the Nile. But again, the conflict between America and Russia, you
Delayed
see,
everything.
the dam built in Egypt, you have to understand, it was started by the Europeans, but it's the Russians who finished it because Egypt, flipped side and went with the Russians. See,
Okay.
but they didn't do a good job of researching because the dam in Egypt is built in Aswan where the evaporation takes so much water. And the silt, the fertile soil that you see this water is brown,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
brethren.
Yes, I
Now
see.
I have to explain to you where this water come from.
Mm.
This water comes from the Simeon Mountains, meaning Simeon means north. That's where Ras Dashin is the number one peak, and I'm the top, what you call the trekker to go to that mountain. I don't go between May, June, July, August, September, October. I go when the rain is stopped.
Yes, I.
And what is so impressive about this mountain? By the way, 70% of Africa's mountains are in Ethiopia. So imagine the waters just coming down. They go into a grand reservoir called Lake Tana. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
From
Yeah.
Lake
Lake
Tana, they
Tana.
start their journey. This is just about 30 kilometers from Lake Tana. Blue Nile
Okay.
Falls, Lake Tana. But imagine throughout the journey that this river is collecting a bunch of rivers from here and there. But did you know? And it's in the Simeon Mountains. The hurricanes that hit the islands in the Caribbean are formed. That's why,
Okay.
that's why Trump
You're
said,
hearing
well,
it
why don't
here.
we bomb these mountains?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a few years ago, he said, man, these hurricanes, they get in. Yeah, but see, because after Ethiopia, I told you, it's flat. The Sahara is flat. So where the water come from? They come from the monsoon from India and China, and then they travel through Arabia, and then they come to Ethiopia. But what happens here, the pressure coming from the Indian Ocean, the pressure coming from the Red Sea, goes into Ethiopia and it's hit these mountains. When it hits these mountains, the water comes down into the lake. And that's
You're
how
getting
the
some
Blue Nile
science
is
here
formed.
too, my listeners. You're getting not only geography, but you're getting science right here now. Go ahead, Brother Abby.
Yeah, so that's why I love what I do because Ethiopia teaches me everything, and that's why I always tell the youth here in Ethiopia about, Marcus Garvey, don't be just an accountant. Don't just be a bookkeeper. Learn everything. Learn
Yes,
everything.
yes,
That's,
yes,
it's because I had Marcus in my bones, in my DNA, that
yes, I.
that I see what, it's about geology, if it's about astronomy, if it's about architecture, if it's about anything, Ethiopia is here to teach you, to show us.
Yes, I. The land of the
So,
gods. Mm-hmm.
yeah. Now, what I lived in Bardar also, for about a year. What I learned about Bardar is just so much water, but we're not growing. We're only growing certain plants. That's another thing in Ethiopia. We need to diverse, we need to grow plants that are more fruits. So this was yesterday,
Yes.
by the way, this is yesterday. The people want to show they're not outnumbered by other faiths. See, it's crowded. This is the place where, where Bob Marley's birthday was celebrated, Muscat Square. Morgan Heritage has a beautiful song. I mean, they did a wonderful job, talking about Muscat Square. So what you see in the middle is the fire that's burning.
What does the
Now,
fire symbolize?
these
What does the fire
traditions,
symbolize?
these traditions, this tradition you have to, this is the end of the rainy season. Okay. Damara means adding up. Tadammara means, we are together. We adding up. We adding up because, the rainy season is over and a new year has arrived. September 11th, this was when we change calendar. You know, we
Yes, sir.
are in the new year. This is the first month of the year. So
Right.
Demera was yesterday. That's when we burned the fire throughout the whole
Okay.
nation, throughout the whole country. And today we celebrate the finding of the true cross. Now, the legend has it to say that Constantine's mother is the one who found the true cross of Christ. Now, I have to give you some history. During the Crusades, when the Islamic leader Salah ad-Din defeated the Crusaders, he heard that Emperor Lalibela was going to change the course of the Nile. So you could see that Ethiopian leaders for the past 1,000 years, they've been trying to use the waters of the Nile. So when Salah ad-Din was informed of that thing, he said, don't do it. We'll send you the cross of Christ. By the time the cross of Christ arrived, Lalibela was gone. So that place where the cross of Christ is located is called Gishan Mariam. It's about 100 kilometers south of Addis. So biblically talking, you know, Ethiopia is the custodian of the Ark of the Covenant, the most sacred thing in the Old Testament, and also custodian of the cross of Christ.
In the New Testament.
In the New Testament. That's why Tawado means unifying the new and the old laws. Unfortunately, you know, ever since the Islamic invasion, ever since we needed help from the Portuguese, the clergy has been under serious attack. You know,
Yes.
so that's why they be bringing these things. Did you know it was an Ethiopian monk who came to Germany and instructed, influenced Martin Luther to rebel against the Catholic Church? Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Now you know. An Ethiopian deacon, I'll send you the information, I'll send you the link. See, he was showing him, look at your religious leaders, they're so profane, you know. They're not applying, they're not, you know, they're not applying the rules of Christianity, of the law. And he's the one who showed him that, you know, Ethiopian emperors are not just emperors, but they're also the defenders of the faith. So they have to be example, you know, of Christ. You know, that's why Emperor Lalibela, you know, he was an emperor, but he was also a builder. Look at His Majesty. He was an emperor, but he was also a teacher. He was a builder. He was an army man. Everything, you know. So, yeah.
Listening to you, I am a member of the Bobo Ashanti tradition of Rastafari.
All right.
Our way of life is a village, a monasteric, really, form of liberty. Within our liberty, like you said, we don't deal with anything outside our environment. We make our own bread, you know, we deal with everything that is coming from the earth. We create our own houses, garments that we wear, you know, we are self-sufficient on a certain level. So listening to you reason even about the clergy and the way those villages function, it carries me into that space to know that King Emmanuel, who was our divine inspiration, he knew exactly what he was doing when he set that order. He reestablished that order in the Western Hemisphere, the order of Melchizedek, which, as you know, is an ancient order that teaches you to be totally independent of the system that we find ourselves in today. So it's beautiful hearing you sharing this information with I and I.
Well, living in when I lived in Shashamane for 3.5 years, you know, I was able to observe the different mansions And I've had good friends now. The youth I told you who was in Abyssinia, his name is Bobo Shasha. I support him, 1,000% because what he's trying to do, he's trying to have a juice place in I don't know if you know the brethren.
I know of
But
the Virgin. I personally, but I know of him. I don't know him
you know of him,
personally.
okay. So the way I met him was a few years ago. National Geographic wanted to do a story about the God story. So what they did, they invited Bob Marley's granddaughter. What's her name? Yeah. But before they invited, I told them, the film producer they were not listening to me. I told them, there's 12 tribes, there's federation, and there's Bobo Shanti. They had no clue what what it was.
Right.
So, but in the Nyabingi house, but when I told them that, they were very curious, and they wanted to do the film, and then I had to explain to them. See, certain things I
Was
can
it
show
Dan?
you.
Was it Darnisha? Darnisha Prendergast, the granddaughter of
Danisha, yeah, Danisha, yeah,
yes,
yeah,
I.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So Danisha, the interview took place around the 12 tribes place and stuff like that. Yeah, she was the one. She was the face and the voice. I'm what you call during filmmaking. I'm a fixer.
Yes, I.
I make sure. But sometimes because I work with so many professional people in big organizations, sometimes I have to be the script writer too to let them know, this is what you're doing is not the complete picture because I know what
Right.
they're going to say will reflect on Ethiopia. So when I explain to them about the Bobo Shanti, trust me, my brethren, they say that's the one we want. No, those are the ones we want to see. But no. So we took them to the 12 tribes, and one of the place she explained to them about Rastafari. Yeah.
Give thanks.
So in
Give
other
thanks.
words, what I'm trying to tell you is whenever big film production, documentary, French, English, if for that matter even Spanish, because I do speak some Spanish, they call Rastafari. They call me. They call
Yes, I.
Rastaman. Because they
Yes, I.
know I know what I'm talking about. So
Well, we
most of
can
the
hear it.
documentary films.
We can hear it, my lord. We can definitely hear the knowledge flowing from the eye, and it makes
Rastafari,
sense.
yeah.
A lot of time you hear the propaganda and you hear the different stories, and there's always something that's not sitting right, not adding up. But listening to the eye put the dots together. The eye really is making the picture very vivid for I and I. We can see a clearer picture of what the past was, why we are in the position we are in the present time in Addis Ababa. You just don't know. Just this little talk this morning has opened up my eyes to many questions that I had that most ones were unable to answer. So I glorify that.
I'm glad, my brother. I'm
So
so
what
glad.
would you
So
say to
glad.
ones now in a realistic way, Rasabe, who would like to come to Ethiopia to live? Because the understanding of ones out here in the West is that Ethiopia is a rough place, a tough place, not ready for us. I have heard famous people, I won't call names, but I've heard famous people say, Ethiopia not ready for me. They're not ready, it's not ready for me. I prefer to go here or there. What would you say to ones and ones, who hold that meditation?
Well, my brethren, those same people who told you that they don't listen. They don't listen to the. Okay, this is what I say to people, especially to I people. Think, think how you're gonna, in your imagination, when you come to Ethiopia, what would you want to do? You want to farm? You want to build houses? You want to go to school? You want to teach school? What are your, goals? So before you pack your stuff, do some scouting, come to Ethiopia and see, the
Mm-hmm.
North and the South,
Mm-hmm.
and ask yourself, where do I feel comfortable?
Mm-hmm.
Where do I feel my calling is? After that, you got to say, I mean, my brethren, if I come to Jamaica tomorrow, I'll have to find a way to create a source of income.
Yes.
I can't be talking on the videos, on the talk shows. It's not going to put food on my table. Me, as a man, I got to say, okay, I better go there, teach these Rasta people some Amharic, go to the school, teach some mathematics, work at the hotel at night as a concierge. So
Yes,
what
yes,
makes
yes.
you think when you're going to come to Ethiopia, you're not going to work?
Because
You,
it's flowing with milk and honey, according to the fable. They've taught this thing that you're going
come
home to Zion, where
yeah.
everything is prepared for you.
No, we have to be realistic. So what are you going to do? How are you going to support yourself and your family? Remember, they're not going to be no, support system, no social security, no welfare, none of that. So how are you going to do this? Do you operate a machine? Do you know how to make keys? Like small thing. I'm just giving you an example, my brethren. Are you an
Yes,
electrician? Are you a plumber? You know,
Yes,
good planning, good research. No, I have enough money to buy a house. Okay, but where you going to buy your house? The house you're buying, is it legitimate? Or is it just a foolishness, trickery, just to rob your money? Could be some Rasta brother who's involved in this drama. Okay, we've seen it. Okay, so be wise. If you invite me to Jamaica, say, Ras Abye, we love you so much. Come to Jamaica. Okay, if I go to Jamaica on the flight, I better think like, how am I going to generate an income? Okay, people love to hear Amarinya. Okay, we can teach the youth and the schools Amarinya, but they're not going to pay me big dollars. On the contrary, they might want me to teach it, voluntarily. So what are the things I'm going to help me make money? We live in the 21st century, my brethren. Are you an electrician? Are you a plumber? Are you a builder? In 1941, Robinson and them, they were pilots. So what they did was they went to the emperor and they said, Your Majesty, these Italian workers will take them 100 years to build your roads all over Ethiopia. So His Majesty said, what am I supposed to do then? His Majesty, you know what we're going to do? We're going to build airports in all these major towns, and we're going to establish Ethiopian Airlines.
Yep,
and then the rest,
success. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And look today, Ethiopian Airlines, 75 years later, is #1 in Africa.
Yes, I.
His Majesty told the Ethiopians, you have 10 years to learn from these white folks, because Robinson is gone, my buddy. If he was here, he would teach you everything. He passed away. So he told them, TWA was managing Ethiopian Airlines. You got 10 years to learn from these white folks. You take over. You're going to be the pilot, the flight attendant, the mechanic.
Yes,
so, people better stop being, we need to be naive and realistic, I'm good with braiding. I'll tell you what, I have a friend who told me, I'm good at braiding hairs. I said, Africa don't need no people braid hairs. I mean, they got their mamas and their sisters do a beauty salon,
Yeah.
We need to put off, we need to come down to we need to come forward to reality.
Well, I have a key question for you here now before we wrap up. The ethnic situation, because we hear so much about what took place with the Tigrayan and the whole thing that happened the last couple of years. What's the atmosphere, among the ethnic tribes here now?
See, politicians, as you know, are wicked. So during the Derg time, they used to play the cards where you are aristocratic, you're capitalistic, this, tick. Brothers kill brothers. Now, you're not from my ethnic group, you're ugly. So the other day they put me, I'm sure you saw the interview, it caused some shock waves because I told them, if you look at Europe, when African black soccer players play, They don't see them as human beings. They see them as monkeys. What
Yes.
made you think he cut that out? He did cut that out from the interview. The interview that you saw, 30
Yeah.
minutes are missing. 30 good minutes. I mean, 32 minutes are missing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I said. That's what I said to them. Do you think these white folks care which one of you is ugly, which one of you is pretty? For them, you're all the same. You're a bunch of monkeys and chimpanzees. You say, how dare you say that? I say, that's what I have to say because we better
Truth.
stop this foolishness.
Truth.
You know, I'm the
Mm-hmm.
better tribe, you're the ugly tribe, and this is wickedness. And this
And
has to
that's
do with
what caused the
education.
genocide in Rwanda some years ago in
Thank you. Thank
1994.
you. Thank you. And I said to them, you better stop looking to the white man as your savior, period. Usually I'm very diplomatic, my brethren. When I come on the media, I rarely come on, but the other
Yeah, but
day
truth has to be
it was
told, my
not
brother.
diplomatic.
Yeah, truth has to be told sometime and it's raw. Shock and awe.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
especially what happened in Ethiopia the past 5 years is unacceptable, totally unacceptable.
Yes,
So
sir.
yeah,
So it has settled down though. There's no,
see,
because the one at the time we heard about the Shashamane, certain brethren and certain
well, I'll tell
regions
you
and
what.
stuff.
Let me tell you the facts. Next year is election. So I don't have to tell the eye how politicians try to clean up their messes before the election.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Same thing
Yeah.
here, nothing different.
No, my brethren, you and I are on the same page. So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna exert myself to convince you, if it's good or
Yes,
bad.
sir.
I'll tell
Yes,
it to you
sir.
like it is. So yeah, I know they wouldn't have invited me on their platform because that's their platform to talk
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They say, Ras Abye have a unifying voice, so everybody
That's
gonna
right.
listen to him. Rastaman, Rastafari.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
symbol. Yeah, man. We are here to play a role. Royal Empress Trisha, are you there?
Yes, greetings, greetings.
Yes, Empress. From a mother, from a female, and as part of the Council of Elders and the Women Freedom Liberation League, do you have any questions for Ras Abye?
Yes. Welcome again, Brother Ras Abye,
That's
to
it.
Cosmic Revelations on turnitup.com. We do welcome and appreciate everything that you have, all the information that you're sharing with us today. I'd like to ask, if possible, can you share what you know of the Red Terror era of the rule in Ethiopia?
If you
Okay.
want a little more detail than what we
All right. Okay.
touched
This
the
is what
surface.
happened.
A little, yeah.
But I'll take you from the beginning. You have to understand the big picture. The emperor is gone. The military is in the palace. The military is in the palace, so they start inviting these leftist scholars who were, smoking cigarette in bars in Paris and stuff like that. You have to understand those scholars, they were divided in the way, which way should socialism go? Should it be a Marxist way? Should it be a Maoist way? Should it be a Leninist way? Some stupidity. And the reason I say this with passion is because my older brother, who is a lieutenant in His Majesty's army, was caught up in this madness. So, okay, the army thinking that these people, these political science students, are bright. They have a better solution for Ethiopia. They bring them. He brings them into the palace. And they tell him, we got to start the white terror. See, you have to understand, I went to school where they taught, French. So I knew about French Revolution. The French Revolution, the Robespierre and them, they came up with this red terror. And, you know, it took Napoleon to stop the French Revolution because they were killing everybody. The revolution turned into a dictatorship. But they never told that to the Ethiopian people. They just said, you know, we need to get rid of any member of society who loves the West. So you have brothers in the same family, one against each other. So the White Terror was orchestrated by some, you know, students who tried to assassinate the military leader Mengistu. Of course, it failed. They don't have no military training. They're not snipers. They're not, you know, guerrilla fighters. They're just students. So the military government and his so-called Marxist scholars, they said we should start the Red Terror. Imagine the damage done is beyond explanation. Why I say this? It happened not just in Addis, because now I go all over Ethiopia, I see the impact. But first, let's talk about Addis. In Addis, the reason why I can't stand those people anymore, you know, even today, I tell them to their faces, you know, when the first communist people who were against the Derg, they were captured by the Derg and they were tortured. They start telling the Derg all the people they recruited, innocent. They pressured them. Imagine, first they were in the opposition. They pressured these youngsters. You got to come join the opposition. And when the leader get caught, he starts snitching. Let me put the word in English so you understand. They snitched on everybody. Their brothers, their friends, and all these innocent people were the ones who got killed. And then when the Derg, you know, turned its back on them, they're the ones who fled to America. You know, I ran to some of them in Djibouti, and I said, man, I know you. I know you. You're a snitch. You were snitching for the Derg, getting all these youngsters killed. And now you're coming here trying to go to America like you're a clean immigrant. That's what happened. But in this process, a whole generation of Ethiopian people were decimated.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a survivor. You know why I say I survived? My brethren, I've seen friends who seen their brothers get killed in front of them. That trauma, they took it with them to Djibouti. They kept it hidden. When they came to America, they couldn't control it no more. So they turned to alcohol.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's a conspiracy. It's a crime done against Ethiopia. And that's why I always speak loudly, passionately against our scholars. Say, don't come around me talking this nonsense because, you know, you guys the ones came with the socialist communist idea. And then, you know, when the Derg didn't want you, you start recruiting all these young people to join you. When the Derg caught you and whooped your butt, you start snitching on these innocent people and you got them killed. We got nobody to blame, my brethren.
Yeah.
So my older brother, who was a military officer, the emperor, he was, after revolution, he was against the military government. So he was caught up in those people and they snitched on him. They snitched on him. So the Derg was trying to kill my brother, so he had to flee. That's why I know personally what happened in Ethiopia. I know exactly what happened. So today, when they come in public, same old Ethiopian People Revolutionary Party, whatever, you know, ex-communists, they wear the suit and ties, they say, we're fighting for the rights of Ethiopians. Please don't come near me. Please don't come near me.
Totally agree. Yes, I. Yes, I.
Because you have to understand, they look down on Rastafari. They look down on us. And I love it when they look down on us because we have the love of the people, my friend.
Totally, my love. Yes, I.
The people of Africa, of Ethiopia, the ordinary people, they love. They know what Rastafari stand for. When they say Rasta people, they hail you, my brother. So they know who will die for Ethiopia.
Yes,
And they know who will betray Ethiopia tomorrow or today, for that matter.
truly. Yes, I. So, Empress, you
Give
good?
thanks. Yes, give thanks. Yes, I'm here.
Rastafari. Yes, I.
Rastafari.
Yes, my brethren, so much. And I know we have just touched the tip of your knowledge because I can tell that you are a treasure trove of knowledge flowing out of Addis Ababa. I look forward to for further interaction with the eye, especially when I
Sure.
get there. I am looking for the eye to carry me to all the places that I need to go.
For sure, my brethren.
Yes,
What I
I.
was thinking, I will send you a sort of itinerary, the same thing I do with Big Sean.
Yes,
When
I.
I am ready, the ones ready, we'll take them to Lalibela, Aksum, and then to Addis, and then to Shash, and then to the southern region, a 10, 15 days program. That
Yes,
way,
I.
you have a full view, and you see, I love to tell you about every mountain, every hill. There's a story everywhere,
Yes,
and
I.
and I don't mind sharing this with you. And I'm a Seginalo.
Yes, I. And when you speak to Bingy Sean for I and I, just bless him up. Yes, I
Oh,
am.
definitely, definitely. By the way,
Rastafari.
there is a sister coming from U.S. going to Ghana. She's stopping here for 2, 3 days. I'm the one who's gonna pick her up and make sure that she's in good hands over here. So yes,
Well,
my
I,
brother.
I will say she's in great hands. So, my brother, give thanks for your time, for your knowledge, and for everything. Just peace and love to the eye, blessings, prosperity, good health, long life. Rastafari.
Bless it. And I give thanks for the idea, for keeping the fire, for being an inspiration, for being, everybody here in Africa see the Rasta people in a special way. They see that Rasta is the avant-garde of the Black liberation. So more strength to the idea.
Black power.
Then
Yes, turn it up, family. Yeah, you see, like what I said, it was a special program. Yeah, it couldn't have been any more special as we celebrate the finding of the Kukra, Mescal, right there in Addis and globally, seen as we are all Ethiopians. We are all, like the Honorable Peter Tosh said, as long as you're black, you're an African. Well, remember now, the continent was Ethiopia. So as long as you're an African, you're an Ethiopian. So we give thanks for the brethren there in Addis in Ethiopia doing his part, just like I and I on this end of the spectrum are here doing our part to bring the information to you, our community, to edify you so you can make conscious decisions about your life, your future, your children, and your grandchildren. So until next time, I and I do give thanks. Aluta continua.
Eternamente.
Rastafari.
Rastafari.
You can end with the music again, Empress.
Thank you, my brother. I'm ending it. Okay.
it has been a beautiful and inspiring presentation today under Mrs. Rasavana.
Africa for the Africans at home and abroad.
I've been listening to Cosmic Vibration days on Stand Radio, standup.com, also on the EABIC, Council of Elders station. This presentation was Ras
When I
Abye,
lift my eyes to the north region, all I see is beautiful
your host,
Ethiopia.
Rasavana
I can't forget the
Ashanti.
land of my culture. Yes, it's the land of Alpha and Omega. Oh yeah,
It's calling.
yes it is, yes it is.
Africa is calling.
Repatriation is a must.
Africa is the world teacher. Yes, it's the cradle of civilization. Africans rise to the occasion. Africa is the land of redemption. Oh yeah. No more tribal boundaries. We got to work out our differences. Let's do it with love and understanding. Let Jah be our guide and leader. Oh yeah.
Africa is calling.
Yes it is, yes it is.
Africa is calling.
We got to go home.
Africa is calling.
Yes it is, yes it is.
Africa is calling.
Can I hear Carlos? Hit me now. You got to live with your brothers. Respect your brothers and sisters. You got to love each other. You got to be your brother's keeper. Oh yeah.
Africa is calling.
Yes it is. Yes it is.
Africa
Be hearing this interview later this evening in the
Yes it is. Yeah.
Revelation segment from 7 until 11. Tune in again to get the fullness of what our brother said. Rastafari.
Africa awaits its creators. Africa awaits you and I. Africa awaits its creators. Africa awaits I and I.
Yes, yeah, man. I know that there's a lot of ones that had questions that their questions were answered today. You heard about the era of the Red Terror, and Ras Abye gave you a total different perspective of it than what we were always taught. You know, you saw the landscape of Ethiopia, and one thing that was very disturbing to me is when you said that in 5 years that village will no longer be there. We have to really pay attention to details like that. Our culture is slowly fading away because of the onslaught of European non-culture being trying to destroy I and I culture. Just like the people that are void of color are trying to destroy the people who are colored. Yeah, we have to see who the real enemy is and identify them, Rastafari. So give thanks. Look forward to being here in the space with the item, next week again. Until such time, heart of love. Now remember, as we pay tribute to our sister, the symbol of liberty, Asata Shakur. Yeah, long live her spirit. He will never be forgotten. And give thanks, he didn't die in the clutches of Babylon. She lived out her life as a free woman in Cuba. And to the Cuban government, we say thank you, thank you, thank you for safeguarding her until this moment. Rastafari. Yes, I. A luta continua.
ውስተ አብያቲሁ ለእግዚአብሔር ውስተ መካን ሀበ ቆመ እግረ
Yes, give thanks.
Honorable
Give
Praise,
praises.
it has been a beautiful, beautiful interview. We pray that the listening and virtual audience inspired and received the message as it was given today. Give thanks, Honorable Priest.
Give thanks, Royal Empress. Blessed Sabbath to all royal Ethiopians near and far. Yeah, as we celebrate Meskel, the finding of the true cross. Meskel, Rastafari, September the 27th. Remember now, it is part of our culture. We don't preserve it, we will lose it. Heart of love, Rastafari.
Rastafari. Again, family, you have been listening to Cosmic Vibrations on Turn It Up Radio, Turn It Up, turnitup.com, also on the EABIC Council of Elders YouTube station with your host, Rasavana Ashanti, and myself, Honorable Empress Trisha, presenting to you today interview with Ras Abye from Ethiopia. Blessed love and do enjoy the rest of your Sabbath. Happy milk. Today is Chris?
Yes, I.
Mescal.
Mescal, the founding of the true cross, not the one that we were given as the symbol of Christianity, but the one that Ethiopia resurrected as the symbol of life.